and producer of what you're watching right now, Blade Talk. If you are new here, welcome, and you find this presentation helpful, informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. So I know that my email has been flooding with questions as I'm gaining more subscribers. Obviously, the questions will come, and I absolutely love them. I try to respond when I'm able to, but in this presentation, I'm going to respond to 5 that I thought really needed to reach a broader audience. So everyone that has a question, feel free to submit it to my email and I will get to it at my earliest convenience. That being said, let's hit that intro and let's begin. All right, so again, these are questions that I felt needed to have a broader audience because there may be others that feel the same way or have the same question. And if you have a question for me, feel free to leave it in the comment section down below or submit it to my email. It's always located in the description at the bottom of my presentations. That being said, let's jump into the first question. Hey Blade, I'm interested in converting to Judaism. I've watched many of your videos. I wanted to ask, is there a stigma that converts get from people that are born Jewish? Do converts get treated differently? So honestly, I can't speak on the stigma itself because I've never personally experienced it. I have had people say that because I chose the conservative movement that I'm somehow less Jewish or not a real Jew anymore. I will say this about people who are born Jewish that look down on converts. In Judaism, memory and loyalty to tradition, not race or territory, those are the fundamental elements of nationalism and nationality. You see, Shemaiah and Avtalion were the leaders of the Jewish people, and they were both converts. They were full-fledged members of Israel at that time, whereas Esav and Ishmael, biological children of Abraham and Yitzhak respectively, were not. They were not part of Israel. So you see where I'm going with this. Both of those children are not descendants of Abraham and Yitzhak. Ishmael is not a descendant of Abraham. And Yitzhak had a son, Esav, and Esav is not a descendant of Yitzhak. Shemaiah and Avtalion are part of the children of Abraham. It is loyalty to memory and tradition that makes someone Jewish. If you want to understand why some born Jews dislike converts, my honest opinion is that usually it's because their Judaism is lacking and they can't handle the thought that someone who wasn't born Jewish might actually be a better Jew or be more Jewish than they are. So they feel threatened by it. So a lot of times, that's essentially why. I hope that answers the question. Second question. Hey Blade, I'm curious, how is fornication or the idea of sex before marriage looked at in Judaism? So, out the gate, the written Torah never forbids sex outside the context of marriage, with the exception of adultery and incest. Those are expressly forbidden. As far as sex outside of marriage, on the contrary, the Torah seems to assume that it's a natural part of life. For example, when Judah sleeps with his daughter-in-law Tamar, mistaking her for a prostitute, Genesis chapter 38, he's never condemned for the sexual act itself, only for avoiding his responsibilities. Similarly, when King David is in his old age and is unable to keep warm, a young virgin is brought to share his bed with him at night. So the Bible is natural and unembarrassed about the sexual activities of its major personalities. Although adultery and incest, again, are expressly forbidden, fornication is not, according to the Torah. Now, that being said, it was the rabbis of the Talmudic period who explicitly outlawed sexual relations outside of marriage. The rabbis of the Talmudic era also laid down strict rulings regarding modesty and the separation of the sexes. And I always find it interesting because did you know that during the First Temple period, they didn't separate the sexes? So it wasn't until we ventured into other civilizations and adapted to the environment that we were living in, that once we came back from the exile, that we started to separate the sexes. But during the First Temple period, there was no such thing as separating men and women. Nevertheless, the intermingling of the sexes in public, even in synagogue, was essentially frowned upon, still is, in the Orthodox community. A man and a woman unrelated by blood or marriage were not permitted to yehud, or being alone together in private. Now, through such rulings and teachings, the rabbis attempted to prevent Jews from participating in sexual activities outside of marriage. However, they could not unequivocally claim that sex outside of marriage is forbidden in the Torah. Only one rabbi tried to find a Torah basis for the prohibition, and it was Rabbi Eliezer, who took Leviticus chapter 19 verse 29, "Do not degrade your daughter and make her a harlot, lest the land fall into harlotry and the land be filled with depravity." And Rabbi Eliezer taught this refers to an unmarried man who comes upon an unmarried woman, not for the purposes of marriage. However, Rabbi Eliezer's ruling was not accepted as the halakha. After all, the Torah does permit a man to take a concubine, that is, a woman in a monogamous sexual relationship without a ketubah, or the traditional kedushin. Maimonides took an approach in the Mishna Torah that followed Rabbi Eliezer's lead in outlawing all sexual relations outside of marriage. Before the giving of the Torah, he writes, "A man would meet a woman in the marketplace, take her home, and she will become his wife. Or he would meet a woman, pay her a fee, and have a sexual encounter with her." Since the giving of the Torah, however, prostitution has become forbidden, and marriage now requires a public ceremony, including ketubah and kedushim before witnesses. Any other sexual encounter is akin to prostitution, is what Maimonides felt, which is, of course, forbidden in the Torah. Maimonides' ruling is not universally accepted. The Ravad, for example, criticizes the Rambam. Prostitution is only when she is promiscuous and sleeps with any man. But if she is set aside for one man, then there is no prohibition. This is the concubine discussed in the Torah. So to answer your question, rabbis are split on the subject. All I can say is that the Torah does not prohibit sex before marriage, and no one has ever been punished for having sex before marriage in the Torah. Rabbis take different stances, but we are to be strict on the Torah law and more lenient on rabbinical laws. So essentially, you can decide for yourself. Hope that answers the question. Next question. Can you briefly explain the Mishna in a way that a beginner of Judaism can understand? Yeah, absolutely. So thousands of years ago, there was a man by the name of Moshe Rabbeinu who went up top of a mountain and received the law from God. He was up there for 40 days to write 613 laws. Now, 613 laws are a lot, but would it really take someone over a month to write them? I mean, ask yourself, how long would it take you to write 613 laws if you were very, very committed? Maybe a week and a half, maybe even sooner. So what was he doing on the mountain the rest of that time? He was up there for over a month. So what he was doing, as tradition teaches, was getting instructions to go with the law. So Moshe would write down a law, and essentially, naturally, he would have questions about the law. And God said, okay, I'll answer your question, but don't write this part down. Otherwise, we'll be on top of this mountain all year, and I got a universe to run and whatnot, and plus there's not enough tablets around here for you to write on, right? So the oral tradition was passed down for a few generations until the Romans got so brutal and started killing off our rabbis and our leaders to the point where Judah the prince made a controversial decision that in order for the oral tradition to be preserved, it needed to be wrote down. So the Mishnah isn't just one book. It is kind of like an encyclopedia. It is divided into 6 orders. Each of those orders are divided into 7 to 12 tractates. There are 63 tractates altogether. They cover the entire oral tradition. Everything from what time you're supposed to say the prayers, to how sacrifices were supposed to be brought when we had a temple. It covers the dietary laws, how much to give to charity, etc. I know many people like to ask, well, is anything found in the Mishnah relevant to us today? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe you're not a plowman who needs to cut the corners of their field so the poor can eat that day. Maybe you're not someone who is working in the temple. Obviously, we don't have a temple. Um, you know, maybe those things don't apply from the Mishnah. But here's a question for you. Do you like to have sex? Did you know that it is a mitzvah for a Jewish man to please their woman? The Mishnah dives into how often a man is supposed to please their woman. So there are things in the Mishnah that we need that are still relevant to us today. Absolutely. And yes, it is a mitzvah for a Jewish man to satisfy his woman sexually. Hope that answers the question. Next question. When Ezra forced Jewish men to put away their foreign wives, did he know that, according to scripture, King David's great-grandmother Ruth was a Moabite? Absolutely he did. And a couple corrections to your question. Ezra did not force Jewish men to put away their wives. Okay, what he did was bring down a ruling of how Jewish people who returned from exile could be right with Hashem. The foreign wives that Ezra was talking about were nothing like Ruth. Ruth converted to Judaism and lived exactly as a Jewish woman. The women during Ezra's times that were married to Jewish men were women who did not convert to Judaism, and that was the issue. The Jewish men who Ezra confronted had married women who did not convert to Judaism and thus were connected to anti-Torah practices. Those same wives had influenced many of the children that had been produced by those unions. Thus, the command to send them back if they did not convert to Judaism. So it wasn't as if Ezra was saying that for all you Jewish men, you need to put away your non-Jewish wives. It was more along the lines of Jewish men came to Ezra and stated, what can I do to please God? And Ezra responded. And if those women wouldn't convert to Judaism, then yeah, put them away. They're corrupting the land. The children are no longer identifying as Jewish, and we're essentially losing our identity. You're not providing anything to the community if you have a wife and children that are anti-Torah. It is in conflict with what we're trying to build here. So that was Ezra's responsibility and what he was trying to get across at that time. Last question. What is one of the best pieces of advice that you were given in your life? So I would say that a man who says sorry when he is wrong is honest. And a man who says sorry even when he's not sure is wise. And a man that says sorry even when he knows that he's right is called a husband. Um, Another piece of advice that I was given was there are two types of people in this world. Avoid them both. Um, no, I would say that the best piece of advice that I have been given is be open minded, surround yourself with people that think differently, and that's how you grow. And I take that to heart. I have people in my circle that disagree with me on certain things. I don't keep yes men around me. I like to be challenged. In fact, when I was going through Jewish day school, that's what they instill in us. We want you to ask questions. We want you a good teacher will provoke you to ask questions. Don't just believe it, ask questions. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. I think that is what's beautiful about Judaism, the fact that we encourage one another to ask questions, have intellectual, honest debates, and let other people decide for themselves which way they want to go. Almost for every ruling in the Talmud, there was another rabbi that disagreed that had a counter response to it. And we leave it up to you. You decide what's best for you based on your position. And that holds true in politics as well. If you're on this side of politics, I can quote a bunch of rabbis that think that that's the right way that you should align yourself with. And if you're on the opposite end of the political party, then I can quote several rabbis that will say that you're on the right side. Just decide for yourself. And now I want to leave you all with a question that my daughter could not answer. Pinocchio. Y'all know Pinocchio. The boy that if he told a lie, his nose would grow, right? If Pinocchio's nose only grows when he tells a lie, it only grows when he tells a lie, right? And the only statement that he makes is, my nose is about to grow. Immediately after he states that, does his nose grow or does it stay the same? Now keep in mind, if his nose doesn't grow, that's a lie. But then again, it is impossible to grow, because if he says my nose is about to grow and it actually grows, that means he told the truth. If he told the truth, then it can't grow because it only grows when he tells a lie. If it doesn't grow, then he told a lie. So what happens? I'll let you all ponder on that. That being said, thank you all so much for submitting your questions. Again, leave them down in the comments section down below, or continue to send them to my email. And I greatly appreciate all the support. Thank you all so much for supporting me, for listening to me. It really makes me happy to know that I can touch so many people. So, if you found this presentation helpful and informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Blade Talk. Be good to yourselves, be good to others, and until next Sunday, You all take care. Shavua Tov.